one of our goals, right, is really to move the health needle in this region. At some point, I said, Doug, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't want to do a national search. And I was thinking in my head, I thought, maybe I'll give it a try. I don't know. I didn't know if I was saying I was going to do it for a couple of months while they search for somebody else. I just didn't talk to my wife about it. This was like I was sitting down in the basement having this conversation. And I had to come upstairs and say, Joey, I think I just committed. What we try to do is design race experiences to satisfy the needs, the wants of our customers. And that requires that you listen.
So what do you think makes the running community so special and such a special group?
It's a really good question. I think that part of it is...
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. Today, I have the distinct pleasure to bring you two guests here in the studio. So I'm going to have the opportunity to interview and engage with today Doug Olberding, the CEO of PigWorks. Doug, thank you so much for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
As well as Lily Parke, a high school intern with the Talent Magnet Institute in Centennial from Beechwood Independent School District, who's also a recent D1 commit at University of Kentucky for cross country and track. Lily, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course.
So we are so excited today to bring you insights and information that you may never have heard about what our community thinks when we think of the Flying Pig Marathon, including when I mentioned PigWorks. Some people don't realize that there's a holding company above the Flying Pig Marathon, and we're going to unpack a lot of that and the impact that your leadership has had and your organization's leadership has had in our community.
All right, well, let's go.
Looking
Fire
forward
away.
to it. All right. So Doug, share with us a little bit about the totality of the impact that PigWorks currently has and has had on our community.
Well, that's an interesting question because we do get asked a lot. And I think that, sort of in this public sport space, there's a lot of questions around economic impact. And of course, I think the Flying Pig Marathon has a tremendous economic impact on this region. The studies that we have show about $25 million a year, and that's basically only the marathon and the half marathon during that weekend. So we're not looking at the totality. We're looking at that one weekend, and it's about 25 million. But the one thing that I've learned, and this is because I'm married to one of the smartest people in the world. Her name is Julie Olberding. We were both researchers, and we started looking beyond economic impact, and we started looking at something called social impacts. And the marathon has tremendous social impacts on our community. And if you think about what we do just on marathon weekend, it takes about 8,000 volunteers, right? 8,000 volunteers to pull that off. These volunteers come from groups, mostly nonprofit or charitable organizations. And it gives them a way to connect not only with what we're doing, but to the city and the neighborhoods that we run through. So we have found that the Flying Pig Marathon has equally as strong social impacts. And then there's one other impact that's really important. And you can talk about place marketing impact. So that's something that, both social impacts and place marketing impacts are outside of that economic impact, right? And the fact that we have runners from all 50 states and over 30 foreign countries come to Cincinnati for the first weekend in May to spend time in this region, it has tremendous value as call it a marketing tool or a place marketing tool. So we're really proud of everything that the marathon does.
I would assume inside the social impact, does that include health and well-being?
Yes. Oh, yes. That's part of what we'll maybe get to this a little bit later or deeper, but one of our, goals, right, is really to move the health needle in this region. If you've been in this city for, if you can think back, 27 years or 28 or 29 years before the Flying Pig Marathon, right? You saw people running on the street, but you didn't see groups of 150 running down the street.
Yeah.
You didn't see training groups meeting all over this region to prepare for these races. And so we like to think that when we get people up and out of their couches, right, and moving through the world under their own power, that is a good thing, right? We want people to be able to experience movement and the joy of movement. And that's what we try to provide with our events.
That's awesome. Doug, how many total races throughout the 12-month calendar year does your organization lead?
We do 17.
Wow.
And we'll be adding to that. So, by this time next year, it will be 20. So, but I will say that 10 of those events happen on Flying Pig Marathon weekend. So we actually have 10 events Flying Pig Marathon weekend.
Wow.
Starting on Friday night with our 1 mile event.
Okay.
And then on Saturday morning, we have the 10K followed by the 5K, followed by our Pig Abilities event, the 26th mile, which is part of our youth program. We have the Flying Fur, which is run with your dog.
Okay.
Or we've even seen people put cats or pet pigs in strollers and push them. But it's our little Flying Fur dog race. Then we have the half marathon, we have the full marathon, and we have the Flying Pig Marathon relay. So quite a few just crammed into those 3 days.
Absolutely. And I was sharing with someone as I was prepping for this interview, and I was mentioning we were having you on, and the connection the person immediately made was to the reggae run.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I know there's a connection because I had read your bio and know about you and your family's impact in our community. Can you share a little bit about the reggae run as well?
Yeah, I can.
And does that still go on?
No, we stopped it in 2014.
Okay.
But I think some people know the story, but I'll say it here. In 1993, I had run a marathon in Canada and qualified for the Boston Marathon. So I was training for the 1994 Boston Marathon. And it was only going to be my second marathon. First marathon I qualified, second one was going to be Boston. So my family and some friends all came to Boston to watch me run. I had a terrible race. I was injured. You can't fake a marathon. I ran like 50. It's downhill, right? So I ran the first 15 miles and you're going downhill. And I got to the bottom there. And all of a sudden, I don't know if you've ever had IT band syndrome. It's painful. You can't, hard to run through that.
Right.
It felt like somebody was jamming a knife in the side of my knee, but my family was waiting for me on Heartbreak Hill. So I decided I was just going to walk, jog, set my little watch to beep every 60 seconds. And I would walk for 60 seconds, jog for 60 seconds. Anyway, on top of Heartbreak Hill with my family was my sister Maria. And she was on the first cross-country team at the old Our Lady of Angels High School in St. Bernard. And so she was a runner, and she said, Doug, I'd love to run a marathon. I said, I'll train you. This was before email and all that stuff. So I wrote out a training plan for her and I faxed it to her. And we would have some check-ins. And my family had a cottage in Grant County, Kentucky on Lake Williamstown. We were all down there in May, opening the place up. Maria left early that day because she wanted to get a run in. She had a long run to do, so she left and went home. And we cleaned up everything at the cottage. My wife and I went back to our home in Lexington. And about 11 o'clock that night, our phone rang. And it was we had those old answering machines where you could hear the person talking and it was a tape, right? And so you could hear my dad going, Doug, pick up the phone, pick up the phone, pick up the phone. And all of a sudden it went dead. And I was like, what was that? And then it rang again. It was Doug, pick up the phone. So I got to the phone. And my dad said, you've got to come up to Cincinnati. Maria's been attacked. And we didn't know what. They didn't say anything really beyond that. And my wife and I, we just grabbed. And it was so weird because my dad didn't say, what condition my sister was in, but we instinctively brought funeral clothes. I threw a dark suit in the car and we got in, drove up, didn't really say anything almost the entire drive from Lexington to Cincinnati, went straight to University Hospital. And when we got there, the grief counselor met us, and she had been stabbed while running over in Hyde Park, which if you were going to be a female and you were going to run in some place in the city, that's probably the place you would want to run. It's a pretty safe neighborhood. So that was, of course, before social media or anything like that. But immediately the story went out that this beautiful 27-year-old woman who was in the prime of her life was murdered doing something she loved.
Wow.
And it took about a month or so. I mean, it just dominated the headlines, such as they were at the time. You know, it was really, that was the grief counselor just said, you guys got to be prepared for this because this is going to be big. And anyway, so it was about a month or so after we were down at the cottage, and one of my sister's friends said, you know, we should put on a race in Maria's honor. And she loved reggae music. That was her favorite style of music. She had visited Jamaica before. And so it just popped. I don't even know who said it, but somebody said, yeah, we'll call it the Reggae Run. And so that was in like late June, early July. And we decided to put this race on in October. Wow. So we're going to put on a 5K in like 3.5 months.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing. And we called a race director, Don Connolly, still a family friend to this day. And we said, hey, this is what we're doing. He said, that doesn't sound like a very good idea, but I'll help you. And so anyway, we started planning, and everybody started jumping in, my entire family. We had 6 brothers and sisters. Now we had 5, and my mom and dad and all of our friends. About 2 weeks before the date of the Reggae Run, Don Connolly called my mom and dad and said, how many are you people planning for? And my mom and dad said, oh, well, maybe we'll have 300. We've got stuff for 300. He goes, well, you better like triple that. I've already got 2,000 people signed up, and we had 2 weeks to go. So anyway, long story short, it became the largest 5K in Cincinnati. But the thing was that it was more than a 5K. Sure. It was a festival that celebrated my sister's life. It was like a reggae concert with a 5K attached to it. And when you got inside, all the food and everything was free. And so we would have these massive gatherings up there first, Saturday in October for 19 years in Olberding Park. And then the last year we moved it to Eden Park, and that we had to move out. We got too big for the neighborhood. So anyway,
When that all happened, you were fairly youthful in your running career.
Yeah, I started running. I joined my first track team in the 6th grade.
Okay.
But I, like a lot of 6th graders, 7th graders, and maybe even high school, I thought that I was going to be a baseball player, or a basketball player. I liked running, and I was fast. I knew I was always the fastest kid on the team. But it wasn't until high school when I got there, and the cross country coach came in and said, hey, there's a sport called cross country, and if you want to get in shape for basketball, you ought to try this. It was like a way to get people in there.
Strategy still, I think.
I think so.
That's the main recruitment strategy, because nobody knows what this is. And so then I found out that I was really good at running, and so that was my sport. Yeah.
Is there a part of you today that always has your sister as a part of the memory of why you're doing what you're doing?
Oh, it changed the entire course of my life in a very like real and meaningful way, because I was, a public finance analyst. I studied state government tax policy and bonds and everything like that. And but I was probably like not happy in what I was nice. People were nice, but I was like, I don't know if this is where I want to be. And I'd begun thinking about, getting a doctoral degree. And I had already talked to some folks at UK. And then after my sister died, they say never make like life decisions when there's a tragedy. And I did. I made life decisions right after a tragedy. And I decided to resign from my job and talk to my wife about it. And I resigned from my job, and I went full-time into the graduate program of sport management, sport marketing at the University of Kentucky. Wow. But, it was, my wife and I still look back on those years in Lexington, starting in, 1994 through the time that we left, as, probably those that time in our life where we really had fun.
Mhm.
We didn't make a lot of money. We were both graduate students,
Mhm.
right? You don't make money when you're a graduate student.
Mhm.
But we had so much fun together during those years. And really, I think we connected in a really strong way. And, now that our kids are gone, we're acting like we're 26 again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing
Yeah.
all of that.
So you've talked about how the running community showed up for you and your family and your sister during the reggae run.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes the running community so special and such a special group?
It's a really good question. I think that part of it is, I can give you an academic answer. I'll give you the academic answer first. And we've done a lot of research. When I was at Xavier, all my stuff I studied was running and runners and marathons and all that stuff. And we did a study of a segmentation study where we asked about 2,500 runners, basically, why do you run? Why do you do this? And it was, pretty sophisticated survey. We were looking at motivations, attitudes, behaviors, really like hard stuff to tease out. And we found that the biggest segment, right, of runners were what we called the social athlete, right? So there was 5 segments that we found. The competitive athlete, that's the person that's running because they want to be fast. There's another segment called the ageless athlete. This is the person I was an ageless athlete. Running has always been in the wheel of my life. I've run a lot of races. I'm never going to stop doing it. Then the biggest segment though was the social athlete. And the social athlete is those people that you see in the running clubs. It's when you're running a road race and you go and there's like a line of 10 people and they're all talking to each other. And they're not really paying attention to how fast they're going, but they do it to connect and they find their tribe. And so I think that social piece of it, for me personally, I can solve the world's problems on a 5-mile run if I'm walking with somebody. We got it all figured out by the time, So I think it's that connection piece. It really is something that you don't experience. You experience it maybe a different way in like team sports like football and basketball, but this. What does a cross-country meet on a Saturday morning look like? A big it's like a festival.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, just a bunch of people.
Everyone brings their tents and it's co-ed. So it's not like the guys are here playing football and the girls are in skirts cheerleading.
It's everyone together.
Everybody's out there doing the same thing and people cheer for one another. They cheer for the first person. They cheer for the last person. And so it's part of, I think, that shared struggle, that shared experience that really makes, and there's other sports that are probably like this, but I think running is unique kind of in that way.
Are you looking for a place that you can create the content that helps market your brand? Or are you somebody who just needs a space that they can record a podcast, record talking head social content? You want to create a webinar, a course, or other content like that? Take a look at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. We're a space built just for creators like you. Our studio here in downtown Cincinnati, located right next to all the hot restaurants in OTR, is set and ready for you. We can have up to 4 people in our studio. You can record long form, short form content. It looks awesome. The lights change colors. Even there, hi, in the background. What's up there, guys? We have all the technical amenities to try and help you succeed at creating high quality content. We work on everything from subscriptions to create your own show. We do day rentals so you can create massive volumes of content and we'll just hand you all the footage. And we can even do things like limited time series where you can come in, record a bunch of episodes at one go, and then have that ready for a show to market your brand or your business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand, or an author who's looking to market themselves with high quality video content, check out our website at CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com and schedule a tour today.
The succession plan. So I've known Iris and Jim Bush for years and years and years. I'm good friends, have been a longtime client of, longtime supplier of services to Bob Coughlin.
Okay.
And the Barons. I don't know if you,
Bob Barron.
Bob Barron,
God rest his soul.
His wife worked with me for a long time, was a great mentor, the two of them. And then yourself, you were a board member.
You're right.
And you were being looked at as I don't know if you were early candidate or if you said, you know what, I think I'm going to put my hat in the ring on this. But can you walk us through a little bit about that succession journey that led you into the role that you're in now?
Yeah, I would say that I never thought I was going to leave Xavier, and I didn't want to leave Xavier. I really enjoyed my time there. I have some great friends there. I love the university. But you remember we had a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And we had a succession plan for the marathon. And the pandemic really sort of disrupted everything. Iris stayed on, and it was, look, we are, surviving if we can get people to register and stand at our starting line and run a race. And when you're not allowed to do that, how do you survive? So we did a bunch of creative things. We started virtual races, and we applied for all those loans that you could get at that time. We didn't have to let anybody go, and we came out the other side. But it was like those first, years coming out were, tough. Everybody. I mean, a lot of races flat out went out of business and had to come back. And so it was right before the 2023 race. Iris will text you and, hey, you got a moment to talk. And that text could come at any time of the day or night. And this one came at about 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday, a couple weeks before the marathon. And we were talking about stuff for the 2023 marathon. Sure. And then at some point, Iris said, Doug, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't want to do a national search. What are we going to, I don't know who's, and she was just talking. And I was thinking in my head, I thought, Iris, I mean, if you think I could do it, maybe I'll give it a try. I don't know. I didn't know if I was saying I was going to do it for a couple months while they search for somebody else. And I didn't even talk to my wife about it. This was like I was sitting down in the basement having this conversation. And I had to come upstairs and say, Julie, I think I
just committed.
What they did when I said that, Iris, then took it we got through the marathon. She took it to the executive committee, and they said, well, we have to do full blown interviews. So they did post a position, and I stepped down from the board of directors at our September meeting. We have one like the second Monday in September. So I resigned from the board and officially put my name in the ring. And so, one thing led to another. And they offered me the job. That was in right after Thanksgiving. So I stayed for my last semester at Xavier because I didn't want to leave them high and dry.
Sure.
And committed to having the best teaching semester that I could possibly have, and just put all of my efforts into making it a great experience for the students in my classes.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And it certainly feels like, I know the Flying Pig was strong going into the pandemic, but it feels like you're stronger than ever coming out. So the leadership that you've been surrounded with, the brand, the impact feels even stronger today than it may have felt 10 years ago.
Well, that's the one thing that I would say. When we think about everything that we're doing now, and I talk about adding events and everything like that, the reason why we can do that is the staff is so good. They're so good at what they do. And we have a group of people that really love what they're doing. And I think, what you get stuck in when you're doing something like Pigworks is, you look at our calendar, right? So let's just start on January 1st. We have our first sort of event. It's a you don't have to pay for it. It's free. It's a supported training run to kick off training for the Flying Pig Marathon. And we invite all the running clubs and anybody that wants to show up. And, last year, I think in January, it was a terrible day. It was raining. It was like 36 degrees on a cold January morning. We had like 500 or 600 people show up, to do this. And so that's January. Then we get to February, March, and we have the Bachfest race. And then we get into April and we have our scholarship breakfast, right? Which is a really big deal. It's just wonderful that we get to celebrate all these young student athletes. Flying Pig Marathon. Then we get June off and we get July off. And then we start in August with the FC Cincinnati race. Then we have the Oktoberfest Cincinnati Brewery Run. That was last weekend. Got the Queen Bee coming up, and we're going to have a new event in November. So you get in this cadence where it's hard to start something new, right? You're just always what's
Right.
the next thing that I have to do?
Yeah.
And so I think part of with me coming in at the time that I did, I was able to really let everybody do what they already know how to do.
Mm.
And it's allowed me to focus on some of the things that are going to help maybe the organization grow.
Mm. And that's such a testament to the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a testament to past leadership,
Mm-hmm.
to board members, to financial supporters,
Yeah.
to create that kind of culture that allows you
Mm-hmm.
to maneuver in and say, you know what, I have space to focus on the future.
Right. Right.
Because so many organizations aren't led well, and you come into turmoil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's the thing that I always say. I didn't have to fix anything.
Yeah.
And we had to change some processes and do a few little
Right.
things that were just, you just get into that cycle.
Sure.
And you're, I think everybody's sitting around the table wondering why we do it. And so it was an opportunity to do some new things. And I think, folks appreciate, some
Absolutely.
change at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how does your past experience in running shape how you lead now?
My past experience in running. Well, I'll tell you what. I ran in high school and I ran in college, and I didn't have a very spectacular college career. I ended up getting injured. I felt like it was at that point in time in like 1982. It was before Title IX. So, we had a cross country team with 25 people on it,
Wow.
a college cross country.
It's definitely
team with
different
20
than now.
Definitely
10 people now.
Yeah, 10 people.
Yeah.
And you just, it was a meat grinder. It
Right.
really was a meat grinder. And whoever was still able to run at the end of the season was probably in really good shape.
Yeah.
The question about how does my running fall? Well, I think that the best times that I have had running are the times where I've been training by myself or with friends. Like it's almost self-directed, not really having a coach. When I was in Lexington, there was this great group that would meet at 5:15 on Tuesday and Thursday morning on the corner of Chenaway and Euclid. And you just knew that if you went there at 5:30 in the morning, there'd be people there.
Mm-hmm.
And you could find a group to run with. And you did that. Coming up here, my wife started a running group in Pleasant Ridge. That's in 2003. That's still going on to this day. All the people that were originally in it I think I'm the only original member that still goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that those sort of communal things are what I like. And I view myself really as a servant leader. I maybe that's the Jesuit training speaking in me, but I feel like my job is to help everybody else do their job, and to develop them as leaders in the organization. I would love everybody to stay at Pigworks as long as they could, but I know that people are going to move on at some point. So I feel like my responsibility to them is when they leave, if they leave, that they leave with a good experience and the tools to improve in whatever the next position is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot like running, it's a team sport. It's an individual sport, but it's a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
You can't win a state championship with one person, right? You got to have 7,
Exactly.
5 scoring, and 7 can cross the line. And so I think it has impacted the way I lead the organization now.
Yeah. Lily, I'm going to turn a question to you. So you're getting ready to pursue this as your college commitment.
Right.
But you've been an incredible leader throughout your community, raising up next generation of runners and being one of the most decorated that I know women runners in the state of Kentucky and high school sports in the state of Kentucky. So what have you learned about leadership inside of?
I've learned to lead by example is the main thing. When you are running good, you're doing good things, there's a lot of people that are looking up to you. Like my mom coaches middle school, so I know I have some middle school girls looking up to me, elementary. So I just do the things that I think are beneficial and lead by doing the good things, cheering people on, going the extra, working hard, and just hoping that it gets passed down to the younger generations because I know they're already looking up to me. So it's good to be an example for them.
And with goal setting, in the last year, I assume you set certain metrics and goals. I don't know if you know this, Doug, that last year Lily ran a how do they word it? Less than 5 minute mile?
Sub 5.
Sub
Sub
5,
five?
and I had a post-it note on my door, like till I broke it.
Did
Said
you
sub
really?
5
That's what I
miles.
was
So
wondering.
Oh.
I am
So
a
you're
big goal
setting
setter.
goals
Yeah.
and metrics, and you're probably already set them for your first year in college.
Right.
And the connection here with UK, you got your doctorate at UK. Lily's committed to UK as of 2-3 weeks ago.
Right.
So I'm sure there's information and insights you can share about Lexington that she's going to get.
Yeah. What are some highlights
Well,
for
I
you?
will tell you that the one thing I would tell you is I think it's still this way. I haven't seen it in a while, but the Shively track was the only blue track that I ever saw.
It's still blue.
It's still blue, and so then I knew that it was always locked up, but we would always sneak in there. We knew how to sneak in, and like we'd get there at 4:30 in the morning. We knew where we could crawl under the fence, and we would do our track workout there before the sun came up, and then we would sneak out. So don't tell any. I don't know who the coach is. Who's the coach down there now?
It's Coach Green's the head track coach, and
Okay.
then Coach Tito is the new cross country coach. He
Okay.
came from Toledo. So.
Yeah. Okay. So they're all the people that were there when I was there are long gone.
I won't tell.
But they probably fixed that fence. So I think the question was, what do I advice about Lexington? Okay.
Yeah.
So my favorite place to, sort of run and do sort of is the Arboretum. Which is sort of north. I think I call it north, but it's across Alumni Drive. And there was a great. It's when I was there, all those trees were just twigs. And my wife went down there about a year ago, and I was like, oh, man, they're all
like a
gigantic
canopy.
trees
Right,
now.
yeah.
It's actually, we used to joke, it's not really an arboretum. There's just a bunch of twigs here, and now they're all trees. But that was one of my favorite places to run was the Arboretum. The other place that I really like to run, I couldn't do it a lot, but was to just get in my car. And if it was, the right time of year and everything like that, I could leave work and drive down to Red River Gorge and do one of the trails down there. And there's some pretty cool
That's
places.
awesome.
I like running trails. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know. I have endless loops. I have I don't wear a watch that keeps track of anything, I used to wear an Ironman Timex, but I don't wear any of that other stuff. So what I would do is I had logbooks, and I would write in my routes and write in how I felt and everything like that. So I've got, a bunch of logbooks from the 80s and 90s that if I pick them up and open
Endless
them up
routes.
and read that entry, I'm like, oh, I actually think I remember that run,
Right.
So yeah,
That's so cool.
I got lots of Lexington runs in that book. One time I was working at John's running shop, which is still down there. John was the original running shop owner. And I was in there, and this guy comes in, and he was a photographer for Runner's World. He said, "Hey, they used to do this feature where they would feature a city, and they would, talk about the places to run there and take pictures." And they said, "Do you have any guys in here that can run? We're doing Lexington." And so me and Larry, my friend, we put our hands up in the air, and so we took this photographer all around Lexington.
That's awesome.
And he was just pictured. So I was in Runner's World magazine,
That's so cool.
running across the causeway in Lexington.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so much of what we take in life comes through adversity, and athletes experience lots of adversity. Some would say, I know I had a cycling accident 4 years ago, and some would say that when you go through those injuries, you always come out stronger because you're training what you're learning. Are there any other lessons of adversity that the two of you have experienced in your running careers that have taught you a life lesson?
I'm pretty injury free the past couple years, which knock on wood for that. But I lost a couple big races unexpectedly. So state, I had a good season. I think I went almost undefeated all season, and then I lost at state to someone who wasn't even in high school. So that was definitely a bummer. But I mean, it's just something that's always in the back of your head, something that pushes you to work harder almost. So that's my thing about adversity. They'd push me to work harder, and then I came back the next year. So
Awesome.
Oh, where do I start? I think the one that I tell now, and it's it's one of those things that in 2019 I was having headaches. I went to the doctor. He said, "Oh, you should get not an MRI, a CAT scan." So I got this CAT scan. And he called me that night and said, "Hey, you've got something in there. We got to you got to go back and get an MRI. So I went back and got an MRI, and it turned out I had a brain tumor. And so that was like in very beginning of September 2019. And so they were doing all these tests to find out if it was cancerous or if it was benign or whatever. And it took till about October, and they weren't able to tell from the spinal fluid draw and everything that they did. So they said, you're going to have surgery, and the surgery was going to be a resection, and then they would test the tumor and find out what it was. So when I knew that I was going to do that, I started, and I've told this story before, but I just started training for surgery like I was training for a marathon. Because I feel like, especially when you get to my age, right? You are at this level of fitness, and then something happens and you don't ever get back up there, right? And too many people my age, something happens and it goes there, and then it goes there, and then it goes there. And I was bound and determined not to have that happen to me. Yeah. So I started training really hard. I wanted to be in the best shape that I could be when I laid on the operating table. And so they did do the surgery, and they took it out, and they found out that it was cancerous. So like on Christmas Eve, I had the surgery on December 4th. On Christmas Eve, they called me to tell me it was cancerous. And that I was going to have to do chemotherapy and all of that stuff. And so that started in end of January in 2020. Wow. And then my second chemo session, I'd go for a week and I'd have 21 days off. So during my second session, that's when the country shut down with the pandemic. And so I had decided during that time, I couldn't run. I wasn't supposed to run. Because of all the jarring and everything like that, but I was allowed to walk. So my wife and I just started walking like crazy. I mean, we were like, we were putting in mega miles, and all around our neighborhood. We started going to parks all in the region. We just, it's a pandemic, nobody's working. So we just drive to a park and walk in the park. And so anyway, that was sort of, and I will say that it did, I know that when I came out of it, it took me a long time to sort of recover and get back to normal after that. I had my last treatments at the end of June or early July of 2020, but it was 10 months, before I felt normal, whatever that was. And it does. It's again, I'll be 62 here in a little bit, and it does sort of set you back a little. But I'm still out. I still run. My goal is I want to be moving through the world under my own power for as long as I can. Yeah. And so that's sort of the goal now. And if I can do it fast, that's great. But some of that speed might be gone.
Right. Well, the community you're doing it in, I see the pictures that you post each week in your running groups on LinkedIn and various things. I mean, that community builds such tight friendships and important relationships. And so you don't have to be the fastest as long as you can participate.
It's actually great because I'll go to these groups and find out what they're going to do. And I find the people that are going to run like 8 or 9 minute miles. Yeah. And so I can run with them and we can talk and it's good. Every once in a while, I'll,
take it up a little bit.
Well, what do they clean the carburetor out a little bit? But I can still, I do want to, I keep saying I want to train for a mile again. I want to just like, do the training that I would have done in high school track, and see what I could do in a mile. Because when I was at UK, in graduate school, they had an intramural track meet that they would do at Shively Track. And so I would enter in the mile to all these undergraduates and fraternity guys and all this stuff. And I loved going in there and smoking them. It was great. It was the best feeling to be like, 33 or 34 years old and going against a bunch of high school college kids and beating them. It was fun.
Awesome.
That's fun.
Well, there's nothing we love more than planting seeds for future. So if it ever becomes an opportunity, maybe you get invited back onto UK's campus to talk to the cross-country or track team at some point. Just saying.
When they find out that I was Indiana University track, they might not want me around.
That's funny.
But I coached at Transylvania University while I was down there. I was a Transy cross-country coach for 2 years while I was there. And it is a great community. I love cross-country meets. People say, fall, it's football weather. No, it's not.
It's cross-country
season.
Cross-country season,
man. It's cross-country weather. Yeah.
Okay, so you may be thinking, how do I do this? How do I lead unconventionally? How do I lead my team in a way that's unconventional? How do I build a strategy that's unconventional to elevate my organization and those around me? I want to encourage you to reach out through the link in the description and post that question. I want to learn how to lead more unconventionally. I want to help my team think unconventionally, and let's start the conversation. So thank you for joining us, and let's get back to the episode. I mentioned to you when we were prepping for this that I would share a little bit and draw the connection of life's adversities. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I heard as you shared the adversity your family went through, I lost my sister last March 30th, 2024. And when I came out of those experiences, I was also told, don't make any big decisions in the first year, which I'm sure I've made several because some of us just can't stop.
Right.
But I did come out of that experience going, how do we create legacy? So we created the Amy Sipple Giving Fund, which makes donations to organizations throughout our community that she would have felt excited about. One of the ways I would have known her excitement is she was never able to do much physically and out in the world with all of her physical ailments and disease and challenges that she felt. But she lived vicariously through the things that Amber and myself and my children and my other sister and her child would do. And she was always so interested. So like this coming Saturday night, Amber and I will be at a fundraising event. And if she were here, she'd want to know all about it. Right. Tell me, what do they do? And what's the purpose? And what's the mission? And that's something I would want to give to. So recently, just last week, we gave to the Pink Project, which gives women and feminine products to high schools throughout our community of individuals who don't have them. And I'm on a board of an organization called Partners for Change. And Amy would have loved to give to that. So we make a donation in her name. But part of what has been so inspiring with the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, we relaunched this after her passing and have really tried to make connections of like these life adversities teach us so much about our future. And we're allowed and able to put this tragic experience into action and find some good from it too. And I know as we share this, so many of our guests and audiences, because we all families have been hit with some tragedy or experience. And our encouragement is, how do you take that and live a life forward and continue to be in the honor of and do what we're all called to do with that experience and life lessons. So I appreciate you sharing that early. It's very personal. We've had various episodes where I've, shared about what we went through in the last year and a half. And it changes your life as a sibling and it really changes and affects your life as a parent, which I'm still living through with my parents and what they're going through. So thank you for sharing that and the impact that your family has had.
You're welcome.
In the leadership of PigWorks, the community impact, which we've talked about, is substantial. I still feel like there's so much more there. I hear all of the incredible things that PigWorks does, and you touched on in April, you give student scholarships. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the scholarship program was started a number of years ago, but for a long time it was very modest. We would give a student or two or three, $1,500 or something. And really, we have been able to grow that because of, one person, Bob Coughlin. Bob is a very, very, very generous.
Yes,
he and Jean are very generous. And I was at Xavier when he called me because I knew about college admission and everything like that, and said, "Hey, I want to do this, but I want to do it big." And so that first year, I think we had 7 young men and 7 young women, and they thought that they were getting a $5,000 scholarship for 4 years. And so we do it at Music Hall. It's a beautiful event. And they all came up on stage, and he finished what he was going to say. And then they started to walk away. He goes, "No, wait a minute. You have to stay up here." And he went in and then eventually he said, "The scholarship that you're getting today is not $5,000 for 1 year. It's $5,000 for 4 years." And you would, there were tears
Oh,
everywhere. In that
I got
room.
cold chills. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a father of two that have gone through college, and funding college is expensive. And just to see the gratitude, and it was just beautiful. And so now we've expanded it to 10 young men, 10 young women each year, $20,000 scholarship. And I think right now, oh boy, I'm going to a cross country meet on Saturday just to talk about the scholarship program. And we've already got over 100 and something in the system. And we just opened the application like 3 weeks ago. So it's going to get really competitive.
That's so funny because
incredible.
I'm working on the application as we.
I don't judge them. So I used to be on the scholarship. When I took this job, I said, well, I probably can't do this anymore. So
No, it was funny. my mom shared it with me and she's like, oh, flying pig, we do this. Here's this other thing. And I'm like, look into it.
The scholarship program is really, it's one of those things that we do. We have our youth program too, where we're, we have a Fly Up to the 5K program, and we have our 26 mile program. These are all programs designed to, with a, sort of an academic component. It can be taught in health class or physical education class. It's a curriculum that we can give to schools, and we just need a supporter in the school that wants to adopt it. And usually we can find a physical education teacher or a health teacher. But the challenge is it's easy to find it in the suburban schools, right? The challenge is in the city schools, right? Where they don't have the resources, and where, a $20 registration fee, which we think of as very, very modest, is a burden for some families. So we've got, we do have we have a scholarship program. So if a student wants to do it, then we have a way to underwrite anybody that wants to participate in the program. But it's, there's barriers, some families can't, transportation's a barrier, right? Transportation is a barrier. Finding safe space to do this can be a real barrier. So we're working with these communities right now, and trying to, have a bigger impact in the neighborhood where we live, right? Where our headquarters is going to be. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. And with that, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Bob and Jean Coughlin for all of your amazing leadership. The late Bob Barron and Jessica for their leadership, as well as Iris and Jim. So we thank you for your friendships and your partnerships and the impact you all have made on this community through this great work. And so many board members, Jamie Smith, Mark Ramler, all such dear friends of ours. And you as well as a board member and the new energy CEO that's taken it into the next generation. I'm just amazed. How many guests do you invite into our region? I know you mentioned 50 states and 30 plus countries, but what does that mean coming through CVG Airport?
So we, about 53% of our 43,000 are going to be from outside of the greater Cincinnati metropolitan statistical area, that 13 county area around here. So about 53% are coming from outside, and they come from all 50 states. And one of the things, another piece of academic research that I did was, there's an economic theory. I'm not going to explain it here, but it's called the Alshian-Allen theory, which essentially the sport tourism interpretation of that is the farther that you travel, the more you will spend when you get there. Because as you think about this, the best example is golf, right? If you know people that are golfing, if they're here locally, how much do they spend when they golf?
Right. You don't drop them much at the pro
shop. But if they go on vacation, they'll spend a lot of money to golf, right? And so it's the same thing. We find that when people travel a long way, they stay longer, they spend more. And so, yes, it's about 53% are coming from outside of the greater Cincinnati area, coming from foreign countries, about 30.
And then how does the global and national community of marathons? We know we have friends who run the Boston Marathon. I believe both of your parents, or just both of your parents have ran the Boston Marathon, the Chicago Marathon. What does that community look like, and how do you play a key part in that?
Well, there's several organizations where we all get together and we all steal from each other, and we know we're stealing from each other. We actually help each other.
Yeah,
We have, so I'll be
building.
going to Running USA here in, at the end of January. And that's basically a meeting of everybody that, that whole ecosystem that puts on, running events. And, So the Flying Pig Marathon is unique, I think, in the space of major urban marathons. And again, credit to Bob Coughlin and his vision. When the idea was first hatched, they thought the people that were, sort of talking about this said, well, I know what we'll do. It's 26 miles from Kings Island to downtown Cincinnati. We'll run 26 miles from Kings. That would be a horrible race, right? I mean, talk about like, And so, Bob really had the vision that no, we've got to, make this something special. So I think part of it is the stroke of genius here, is calling it Flying Pig Marathon, not the Cincinnati Marathon. It was the Flying Pig Marathon. And, it is, and you can play with that so much. Our color is
brand,
pink. There's
yeah.
no other sport organization whose primary color is pink, right? So there, immediately we set ourselves apart from everything else that was going on. And we came along at a time when marathoning was really starting to blow up, that 1997, 98, 99 period. I remember looking at the data and it was just like, every year it was another 100,000 people were doing this stuff. So I think, that really sort of unique, playful brand gives us a special space in the marathon community, because people will, if you look, right, consistently, we're ranked in the top 5 in terms of like runner experience, and we're not the biggest. We are not the biggest. When we were voted the number 1 marathon in the country in 2024, ahead of Boston, ahead of Chicago, ahead of New York. So, it's more, and I think that's what happened. Like when runners, the old crusty runners try to figure something out, they're going to try to figure it out for old crusty runners. But you bring in some people that, that are thinking maybe a little bit differently, you come up with something like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's very special to everyone else. Everyone else loves the Flying Pig, as you talked about. But what do you look forward to most about Flying Pig Weekend? Or do you have a specific race or anything like that?
I don't know. I was like, it took me like 5 days to come down from the Flying Pig Marathon this past year. I was just like buzzing.
Weather was perfect.
You get some, if you're doing something this big and there's 43,000 people, you're going to get some emails that people aren't happy about or whatever. I didn't read any of them until the following Monday.
That's good.
Because I was reading all the good stuff. To me, I always say that one of the most special places that you can be is the finish line of a marathon, because you can't just like decide to run a marathon tomorrow. Most people can't, right? You might be able to. Most people
I don't know
can't do
about
it.
that.
Most people can't do it. And so you have to rearrange your life for 6 months to do this, and to see the emotion. And it's not just the people that win, but it's the people that are finishing in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours and we honor everybody's effort.
Awesome.
I mean, we reward the emotions of everybody who participates in our event. And so to see the finish line, that's kind of the coolest place to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. As you, as we have audience members tuning into this, and they may be taking some inspiration from this discussion and maybe launching into a new idea that they have. You all unite people. You just spoke to it. You just said we celebrate everyone for whatever they give and whatever they put into this. What advice would you give to somebody thinking of doing something that would unite people? What type of leadership advice or values do you believe it takes in order to make that possible?
Well, I think, part of it is, of course it would depend on what you're doing, but I think that, what we do is really, what we're really good at is listening I don't want to call them customers, but let's call them customers. We listen to our runners.
Yeah.
We listen to our runners.
Hmm.
And I said a little bit ago that if you let a bunch of crusty old runners do something, you're going to get something for crusty old runners, right? And this comes from the marketing background. But really what we try to do is design, race experiences to satisfy, the needs, the wants of our customers. And that requires that you listen, right? You can't impose, right? You really have to listen. And we do that constantly. And just in talking, but really sort of very, very formally and with data. And so, the one event that we can't say what it's going to be, but maybe in a month I can, but really came from listening, and it's going to be something different than really kind of any running event that we've done.
That's awesome
in the past. So,
yeah. So you listened to create everything that got you to today, but you're also continuing to listen
yes.
and not rest on your, where you're comfortable and that we've got this and we don't need any other feedback because we're global experts. We're ranked the #1 marathon in the country or the world.
Yeah.
You're still listening.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of, I think, I was asked to give a presentation at this year's Running USA conference about this thing that I can't talk about yet. But matter of fact, when this podcast is over, I'm going to go meet to talk about that thing with the people who are helping us with this. So
that's
anyway,
awesome.
You
heard it here, everyone. The thing we're not allowed to talk about, but
you heard nothing here.
That one thing.
But it's going to be really, I think part of it is just, you have to, everything, the one thing that the Flying Pig Marathon could do is just do what it's always done. And it would probably be okay. What I feel like my role here now is to help the organization to grow and evolve so that in the next 30 years, in 2056, that Flying Pig Marathon is even greater, has a deeper impact, and is more loved than that it is now. And so, like for you, there's always been a Flying Pig Marathon.
Yeah,
you
always.
have not known a day or a year without a Flying Pig Marathon, and that's one of the things that gets me is like
the little kid sprints.
I remember these. I remember when there was no races. The Thanksgiving Day race. That's kind of the only race you could do. But that we know now that there's a generation of runners that have grown up always knowing that there's a Flying Pig Marathon, and so if you think of in 60 years, if we can still be doing that. People that are going to be 60, 70 years old, they've always been there, right? Yeah. It's always been an option. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to ask the two of you this question that we like to ask our guests as we wrap up episodes around defining to you what it means when I say the words unconventional leadership. Doug, I'd like to start with you.
Well, I used to teach a little bit of leadership stuff. And I feel like, that there's not necessarily one style. Like I say that I'm a servant leader, but there are times when I can't be a servant leader, right? It requires somebody to make a decision. So it is really, when you say unconventional, I feel like it is very situational. I feel like, I don't like the people, when people come in and they, we're going to do it just like, this is how we're going to do something. And they're, sort of, like a general or something like that. We don't live, I don't live in that world where that would work, but there's times when you have to be like that. So, it's transformational but I think there's these leadership theories and styles of leadership are all out there. And I think that you have to be able to adapt, what you've learned to the situation that you're in. So I don't know if that's being unconventional or not, though.
Yeah. I say anyone who's leading intentionally, unfortunately, in the world we're in today, is leading unconventional.
Yeah.
And the way that you described listening and continuing to listen, you're right. Sometimes you have to bring.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to
Right.
bring
There's
the
times
energy,
where you have to make decisions,
and that's based on
Yeah.
the listening that you're doing. Of
Yeah.
here's how we're going to get that type of response or impact.
Mhm.
But that leading intentionally changes everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Lily, for you, how would you define unconventional leadership?
I would just say it's leading through things that you're passionate with. So finding the leadership opportunities and things that you maybe wouldn't think you could find leadership in, and being a leader in those ways. Like I find being a leader through my running a lot, and you're leading from something you did from running too. So it's just finding what you're passionate about and making a way to lead there and do things through that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us today. And Doug, thank you for allowing Lily and I to throw
I'm
questions
glad,
at you.
glad we had company here.
Yeah. This felt like the right time to have us all together.
Lily,
So,
I'm going to be watching the results of all the races now that we've met. So,
For sure.
and if I get over to Northern Kentucky, I'll see if I can pop in and see one of the races. I'm getting around to some of the cross country races.
Yeah.
I got one this weekend, but I'll try and pop over and see you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Well, thank you both very much. And thank you all for joining us for this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. We'd love for you to give us comments, thoughts, feedback from today's episode. What was your number one or top 2 or 3 takeaways? And what questions would you have if we were able to direct those questions back to Lily and Doug? What else are you thinking? So we can be responsive to you in that way. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to connecting with you on the next episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast.